What's up, everybody? Welcome into a special pre-Thanksgiving edition of SSPN Postgame. I'm Jude. That's Ethan. As you can see, Ethan's here on the phone. He's being a real trooper with us today. So y'all got to all be in the comments and show Ethan some love because he could not be here right now. He's not with the setup, but he's still making it happen. So we'll just roll right into it, Ethan. Obviously, I believe 118 to 97 or something like that. Maybe that was just the last score I saw. I don't know. But regardless, a dominant win for the Pelicans tonight over the Spurs. Just what were kind of your overall thoughts on this one?
The score is misleading. It wasn't even that close. Like, it was way bigger of a question at all. I think we had one semi run in like the second quarter where it looked like points, and then maybe make another run, but it was quickly gone. The Spurs delves early on and let the Pelicans get open lanes to the rim, wide open shots with very little. We looked completely out of sorts, out of rhythm, no chemistry, not a lot of communication defensively, and then offensively, a lot of silly turnovers. It looked like guys were in the rooms. Just a lot of miscommunication and lack of chemistry. It felt like, I don't know, on a losing streak. I don't know if that has something to do with teams kind of figuring out this and knowing how to limit our bigger guys, and it also could have something to do with the injury. They're not their big names, but not having Zach Collins, losing Josh Primo, losing all these guys, it has an effect on the team as a whole. And they're a really good team. We were talking about that. We were texting about it. They're a terrific playoff caliber team. Zion, like, he's back to all-star shape again. And they have Brandon Ingram, who's also all-star caliber guy, wing players. So shout out to them. They had a great scheme, and they were able to just kept shooting themselves in the foot. But that's just what you sign up for when you have a young team.
Yeah, absolutely. I cut out a little bit in and out there sometimes, but I think I got the main thing of what you were saying there, and it's just kind of what you ended with. This is a young team, and I think it's just like I wonder if like real basketball people would disagree with me on this, but the more I've been thinking about it, Ethan, I feel like kind of at the beginning of the year, the Spurs were able to just kind of play more because teams were just getting into the flow of the season. There was less scheme and stuff. And now it seems like there's a lot more like out of sorts. I heard you were mentioning that, right? And that's kind of with the turnovers, just missed passes to where nobody is completely there. And I think that's because they're trying to implement some more scheme stuff. But when it comes to just being as young as they are, like the mistakes are just going to be inevitable. They don't they're not to that level of basketball IQ yet. And that's not to say that they can't get there. It's just they don't have the experience under their belts that, a lot of these other teams have, obviously, that have been in the league for a long time, understanding these schemes, where really this is the first time that they're having to like know what to do in a major role when it comes to guys like Trey Jones, Devin Vassell, and Keldon. But just talking about the bright spots a little bit more. Obviously, I know Keldon has been struggling, but I felt like Devin, throughout this whole stretch, he's been able to kind of do the same things that we've seen him do, or that we saw him do at the beginning of the season. He's the one who's been able to stay consistent, and I think a lot of that has to do with his growth. Offensively, when it comes to his bag that we've mentioned a lot. Another thing, I know when you look at the box score, Trey Jones isn't going to look that great tonight. But I think overall, like even tonight, like first of all, he wasn't shooting well. He found a way to get to the free throw line, and then he was able to create. And obviously that's something that he's done, throughout the season. But I felt like tonight he was able to kind of give the offense a little bit of a spark when it needed one, even though he wasn't able to find success. So that's another good thing there. But when you look at the rest of everything else going on right now, it's just, Dougie's kind of your scorer when you can't get a bucket. But in this stretch, KJ, just going back to him a little bit more and his struggles, what do you kind of feel like is going on there? I feel like it's definitely, yes, it has to do with the schemes and everything and them finding ways to make him uncomfortable. But I think at the same time, that is frustrating him. And I think it's a little bit in his head. Like, I don't think that this is an indictment on him. I think he was able to dominate a little bit more when they were just playing, like I mentioned in the early season. And now it's a little bit frustrating, but for him. But what do you kind of think of his struggles specifically?
Yeah, it was bound thing with the team and general. Like, we started off so strong, so hot, that he come back to reality. And we both are really high on KJ. We think he has a pretty high ceiling. Stars in general, not just exclusive to Keldon. Early on, unless they're like superstar exceptions like LeBron, when they're getting into that, level of like almost an all-star, inconsistent is a constant struggle. Bringing it every night and being that 23, 24 guy every single night and giving your team a chance to win, very difficult to do. So we're asking a lot of Keldon Johnson. This was bound to long-term thing. I think he'll gradually kind of get out of it and find a groove. I don't think per game necessarily by the end of the season. I think it'll come down closer to that 20-point mark. Difficult to ask a guy who last year was the second option. I know he was averaging 17 points per game that much. You know what I mean? Like, we both expected him to be at 20-point mark. Holes in his offensive game, because you can't go from a one-dimensional player to all of a sudden being or Kawhi Leonard. You know what I mean? So have nights like this where he struggles, but I think he will come back to somewhere in the middle between where he started, which was where he is now, which is really struggling to find his rhythm.
Yeah. Just thinking about some other things overall that you've kind of seen from this 1-11 game skid here. Like, do you think that I feel like more than likely this will continue? I think they'll get a little bit of a rhythm going, maybe kind of like over some stretches like we saw at the beginning of the year. But I think for the most part, this is a lot of what we're going to see now, just with the game plans being implemented and stuff. But what are some other things that you've kind of seen throughout this stretch? Just to name some things from my perspective, I feel like once again, it's like running more like concrete, like actual stuff to counter the stuff that other teams are running. And that's just leading to more turnovers because of the youthfulness. And, just it's going to take like a lot of reps to really get comfortable in like running a lot of this stuff and learning Pop's system. But another thing that I guess just this is off topic, but going back to some good things tonight, Sohan, Ryan Russillo tweeted a while ago. He's like, I don't care about the stats. Like, Sohan is going to be a really good player. And that's, I felt like tonight was another example of that. Obviously the team wasn't doing well, but you saw his effort and he just brings so much to the table. Like in 4 years when it comes to him having like, really some time to work on his jumper and just, all of the other things. Cause I feel like we saw more of his playmaking tonight. We've seen his shooting and his offensive game with little pull-ups in the mid-range. It's not the most pretty thing of all time, but still like it goes in. And so on top of his playmaking and being able to defend, 1 through 4 really is what it looks like. Starting off first, what are some things that you feel like have also contributed to this 1-11 streak? And then just to go off Jeremy Sohan a little bit, what have you seen from him that have been some positives as of late?
Foremost stem from lack of continuity. We are not the same team on the floor games. That's been injuries to guys like Jay Rich. We've had many guys in and out of the lineup of the cell. The whole Joshua Primo scandal, which has left our bench unit without a playmaker. But we've all noticed he also has holes as a point guard. That's just not his natural position. Then our rookie, Blake Wesley. So there's so many contributing factors. We're still a young team. I hate to harp on that, but young teams, we have so much to learn. It's not just we're still clearly doing and learning how to play within our roles. It also has to adjust and learning how to adjust to teams' adjustments. Because now we're seeing that team had a scheme against the San Antonio Spurs, how to slow down a Keldon Johnson, how to eliminate the ball like Jay Rich and Doug McDermott had a good night, but he was struggling on this stretch as well. So we have to figure out, and unfortunately it's an ugly reality, but we're not that great right now. So it's kind of inconsistency, a lot of ugly mistakes, but it's just what we have to live with. And then another thing, the game, we're going to have one quarter where we're not there. It's like we're not even on the court. That first quarter, it was just ugly basketball. And I know the rest of the game wasn't pretty back into a rhythm, and it felt competitive. And if you weren't looking at the score, we were giving a more effort and slightly better. But whether that be the third quarter coming out of the half or finishing games, at some point we're going to shut down, and that's just it's been a continuous thing, a theme that we're going to have to just live with for now. I'm not just giving them excuses that be fixed overnight. This is just a symptom of our age and our experience.
Yeah, I think you really hit it on the head there. When it comes to all the inconsistencies, it's really just youthfulness, rearing its head now that we're really getting into the season. And I feel like we may have you get so hyped up for the season every year. You forget. You want to take everything. So literally early in the season, but I think that's something both of us, or myself for sure, might have fell victim to. And obviously, like I think it definitely displayed like the talent that this team has, and I think
Yeah.
still like they showed more than what we thought. But I'm thinking about it now, and it's like this definitely happened a little bit last year, where the Spurs got some wins over the Lakers, I believe the Clippers back to back, like to start last year, and then kind of tailed off as the season went on. Obviously, you had DeJounte there, so that helped. That would have been like, you'd stay more competitive in a game like this, not necessarily changing the result, but it wouldn't be as much of a blowout. But at the same time, it's really just the youthfulness. I feel like it's just showing itself, and it's getting exposed, over this 12-game stretch.
For sure.
Yeah, well, I think we'll just wrap that one up with this one, or wrap this one up with that, because there's really not too much to talk about this game. I saw a lot of y'all making some funny comments earlier. Zion was definitely destroying the D tonight. He was penetrating the interior. There's no doubt. And he was dunking on our paint, if you will. So I mean, but we were talking about that, and we could just end off with a little bit like that. Like the Pelicans with Zion healthy, like I can't wait to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. They're going to be a problem for anybody. But yeah, this young Spurs team, they've got a lot of problems within themselves, but it's okay because they're young and they're supposed to, and they're going to have to work it out this season. And you kind of like the little bit of the hot start to the season, not because, I mean, yes, it showcases the talent, but also like it's really insignificant whenever it comes to percentage for draft lottery because of how close it is, like as the season progresses. Like right now, the Rockets have 3 more losses than us. Obviously they'll get better, win some more games. We were talking about that, but some other teams still might be below the Spurs right now, but those lottery odds, when you eventually, I think the Spurs are going to fall into kind of what we thought in that bottom 5 of the league. Maybe at least bottom 5 of the West. The odds aren't going to be, what's the word? It's just not as significant as we've mentioned that much. Like you can be just in that range and you're basically going to have the same percentage chance or a much better chance than everybody else, even if it's 14-12, like at that point,
Yeah.
You're going to have to roll your dice in the lottery anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Silver line is that number 1 pick.
You're right. It's hoping for a lot. But any final thoughts from you, Ethan, kind of just to wrap this episode up?
I'll be at that Laker game Friday. I could just witness LeBron James's comeback next. That's on.
You think he's gonna play?
Still, all signs point to yes.
Right.
The Lakers.
That's they're saying today.
Sean and Bill were saying that. So, I haven't seen that. I kind of hope he does.
Obviously, you want to see him, but I don't even like him. But I'd want to see him if I was you. So,
Kata Bates see him and just turn on.
This is
the tournament.
KBD revenge game 35 for show.
For sure.
Alrighty. Well, we appreciate y'all for tuning into this episode of SSPN. We're going to be back probably sometime over the weekend, maybe Sunday. I don't know. I'm going to College Station this weekend. So you're going to that game. I'm going to LSU game. But I need to get out to a Spurs game at some point. It'll happen this year for sure. I think I might go to one of the games in Austin, but that would be fun later in the year. Yeah. But anyways, we appreciate y'all for tuning into SSPN. I know this was a little bit of a shorter one just with Ethan being on the phone, but I didn't want to keep him too long. So we appreciate you guys so much for hanging out. And I mean, I know you were willing to, but just being at home and everything like that. So Anyways, we appreciate y'all. Go Spurs, go. We'll be back at least, even if it's not this week because of Thanksgiving, it'll be sometime next week. And kind of Ethan will be back in his setup. And we'll really kind of break this down a little bit more with some questions from y'all with a live or something. So, anyways, we appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Follow us on Twitter down below to stay updated with everything. And we will catch you guys in the next one.